Progressive overload. You're going to hear us talk about this a lot. So I'm going to talk reps and kilos today and real generic, broad, sweeping statements that are useful, but remember this is just a guide and there's much more nuance to this, but this is a good starting point. So when it comes to barbell work, we're not going to adjust the repetitions. We're going to stick at the same repetitions, but we can manipulate the weight all the way down to putting on 0.25 plates. So that is why we're going to stick with the same rep range, but we are going to adjust the kilos. So when we're looking to progress with lower body, we're likely going to be adding 2.5 in total or 5 kilos in total to the bar. There's going to be a point at which we can't do that, therefore these micro plates become very useful. If we're doing an upper body movement, we're likely not going to go beyond 2.5 kilos in total. And I'm talking weekly, by the way, I don't think I said that. So this is on a weekly basis, trying to add weight. And much earlier on with the upper body movement, you're going to look for these micro plates because it's just much tougher to progress upper body movements versus lower body because our lower body has much larger muscle groups versus our upper body. So that's the barbell rules we're going to apply. When it comes to dumbbells, again, this is really nuanced. It becomes even more nuanced when it comes to dumbbells. So we've got anywhere from 1 kilos all the way up to 10 that goes up in 1 kilo jumps. So with those movements, you're likely going to be able to progress the weight a bit earlier on than when you need to progress the reps. However, when it gets to that point that the next weight is going to be tricky, then you can add reps to the rep range we have set. As an example, let's say we are doing some chest press and we're on 9 kilos and we're struggling to get to 10 kilos. We're doing 10 reps of them. Maybe we add anywhere between about 2 and 5 reps. When we're comfortable at roughly that 12 to 15 rep range, then we can drop back down to the original reps, which were 10, and go up to the 10 kilo dumbbells. So that is how we're going to look to progress the dumbbells. That is certainly going to apply when we're on 12.5K, 15K, 17.5K. Those are much bigger jumps. So we really have to then, at that point, most likely, add reps before we add weight. So once again, we're going to add reps to our original reps that we will have written you. Again, let's use the example of 10. And we're going to add anywhere between about 2 and 5 reps. And this does depend on the movement. Maybe it'll be more like 5 to 10 reps we add on before we attempt the next weight up and go back to the original rep range when we go to that next weight up. So that's the dumbbell progression we're going to kind of generically give you in terms of advice. Progressive overload now onto kettlebells. So kettlebells are in weird jumps and what we've got is 6, 8, 10, 12, and then after that we're going up in 4s to 16 to 20 to 24 and so forth. So it's a similar chat when it comes to dumbbells and kettlebells. So we're most likely going to be adding reps before we try the next weight up and decrease the reps back down to our original rep range. So I'm going to give you an example. So let's say we're on the 16 kilo and we want to move to the 20. We're doing 10 reps of let's go with an RDL or Romania deadlift. And we're thinking 20 is a bit much to move up to yet. So with our 10 reps, we'll add anywhere between, again, I'm kind of putting numbers out of the air, but it's not a bad guide to go for, anywhere between about 2 and 5 reps. So let's say we get to that 15th rep, we're feeling pretty comfortable with 16 kilos. Now's the time to give a go at 20 kilos, drop down to the original rep range of 10, and that 20 kilos should be feeling, pretty doable for 10 reps. So that's how we're going to progress our kettlebells. Now, when it comes to body weight, of course, we're not using weights for the most part. It does depend on the movement. For dips, for example, even pull-ups, you can put a dipping belt around you and you can add weight then. So that is one way of progressing. The other way we can progress body weight exercises is generally through repetitions. So let's say someone's doing knee down press ups and they're aiming for 20 down the line. So we're going to build up 1 rep at a time. Let's say they've struggled at the start, they're only doing 5 reps, but on a weekly or fortnightly or even a monthly basis, we're adding repetitions and we get to that point of 20 reps and we go, okay, well, what next? Well, in our knees down position, we're doing what's called we're taking a biomechanical advantage of a shorter lever because I've put my knees on the floor. So a way to progress is to go into full press ups. Now the lever is much longer, we're at a biomechanical disadvantage. And we're likely going to be starting at much lower reps. So anywhere between 1 and 5 might be a good example for this person doing their knees down, they're at 20 reps, so it's already quite high. 1 to 5 is probably a realistic number. And then they go for their full press up. Okay, and then kind of rinse and repeat. Maybe we've set them to go up to 20 reps. But hopefully you get the idea. Again, this is all very nuanced. But that is how we're going to look for kind of a generic progressive overload model depending on the tool that you're using in the gym.